Okay, so today I want to talk a little bit about the design thinking behind our concierge bot. Her name is Gigi. So by now, you guys probably have seen a TED Talk or two, so I probably don't need to walk you through what a TED Talk is. But the conference side of TED Conference might not be as well known. So once a year, we all gather together. We have like 50 to 70 speakers alongside, as Brady mentioned, about 1,500 attendees. And we go to Vancouver. We spend 5 days, very intensive. And basically, we get to know each other. We watch the talks, and so on and so forth. The idea of the bot came about because we want to introduce a white glove treatment to the people who are attending the TED conference. And the email method for which wasn't fast enough. And the Vancouver Convention Center, which is the space that we were at, was really big. So if you have a question you want to ask and you're on the 3rd floor and it's like a 20-minute walk, it's really kind of annoying. So we talk. What I was actually supposed to be building, in a nutshell, was not necessarily, the original intention wasn't really to build a bot. It was actually to build a messaging platform that can manage instant queues for all of these people who have questions, and to be able to support it immediately for 24/7 over the course of 5 days. So that was the task. What we ended up with was Gigi. Is the bot, should it be a bot? She certainly feels like a bot and looks like a bot, but you can decide later. So here's a quick screenshots of our conference app called TED Connect. It's just a generic conference app that we built homegrown, has your typical scheduling, wayfinding, and things like that. And this is sort of like the interface for talking to Gigi. Not that different from, regular messaging. I won't go into too much detail about how the app works or anything like that, because I want to talk specifically around the concierge itself and the 5 lessons learned from designing Gigi. So firstly, we moved away from a nameless, faceless icon that is just like the TED concierge, and we created and personified a character called Gigi. She's actually an Australian hand puppet. Somebody made it for her and it was just sitting in an office. Actually, there was like really no real history behind her except she was cute. I commissioned an artist to illustrate her in 3 different states, even though she was supposed to be available 24/7. One of the lessons that we learned is that somewhere along the way, something probably will fail, and so we designed a sleeping mode so that people would forgive us. We personified a character. What we found was that people were intrigued. And to get someone to start using a feature, you have to have a reason, right? And intrigue was one of our starting points. We teased out Gigi was available around the conference space, but we never quite revealed whether or not she was a bot. And so we made her cute and friendly and all of that stuff. And what we saw were that the inquiries, the conversation that comes in, were more kind of like more of an inquiry, a conversation, as opposed to a demand, or like what is wrong with my ex or whatever that may be. And so that was really delightful. Here is an example of a tweet that we found of somebody trying to figure out whether or not Gigi was a bot. So she asked a question, hello, how do you unicorns procreate? So of course she gets the answer. Now over time people became more warm to chatting with Gigi and got helpful answers. Now if she wasn't really a character, we probably won't get this kind of conversations. So that was pretty good learning lessons. The second learning lesson was the narrative framework. The Snow White narrative framework was a method that Airbnb has used to pivot their company from whatever they were to a full end-to-end service design company a few years ago. It was written up in some article. The idea was borrowed from how Disney creates storyboards when they build animation. And the core idea for that is that every scene, there's what's called a moment of truth. And you then design the characters, the scene, and the storyboard around these moments of truth. And we use this particular model to map key moments of an attendee's journey throughout the TED conference experience. And within each of the moments, we would consider both what they need and how they feel. I want to underscore a little bit that understanding and empathizing are two very different things. So we understand that a first-time TED attendee needs a personalized schedule that's easily accessible. We empathize with a first-time TED attendee that he or she might feel intimidated by all of the things that are happening, and that might be an opportunity for Gigi to suggest something like, might you want to go to a first-timer dinner? This is how I map out the moments. So like, attendee is a first-timer, a moment is on arrival, this is what they need, this is what they feel, and these are the things that Gigi could potentially be doing. Once we identify a couple of these moments, we can then use them to further build out which messages do we want Gigi to initiate first in an unsolicited manner, and what time that should be in order for us to be able to be more helpful without waiting for the attendees to actually engage first. We can also use the same data pool to do things like figure out who has answered what question, build out the knowledge pool, and also identify escalation path in the service design tier. So let's talk execution for a bit. The TED Connect app is, so we built that ourselves. The messaging platform itself is super lightweight, push protocol, nothing too terribly fancy, probably a whole lot less fancy than some of the stuff you guys saw today. We use a product called Live Chat. It's a software that allows us to queue concurrent inquiries and match them with appropriate set of staff. And there's a pretty cool API there that we can plug it into our event management system, so we can sync in like identity with within the Live Chat platform and our event management system relatively easily. Gigi, so the so-called bot, is actually a team of about 5 to 10 people. They're mostly engineers and designers, and this was a deliberate choice. I purposely forced the tech staff onto the Gigi duty instead of the conference staff or customer support staff for 2 reasons. One, this is a brand new process, and tech people will be able to identify problems more readily because they know the tools really well. And we didn't really get it right the first time. Empathy, by virtue of living through the process failure, really kind of teach the team to be able to identify problems, but also, and secondly, they can collect meaningful data points so that they can optimize the opportunities later on. Now, the surprising aspect of this point, though, is that it turns out because we staff Gigi with humans, we are able to inject what we like to call the surprise and delight factor in ways that the smartest bot probably won't be able to do right out the gate. And this one is my favorite. And this is an article from LinkedIn. They picked it up. So one night, an attendee wrote about like 2 a.m. It's not really a request, it's more like a confession. And it says, I was drunk, hungry, and at 1 a.m. I ate a club sandwich and a chocolate cake, so ashamed. So to us, this is equally an important moment as the moment we resolve things like your agenda problems or your schedule, because it's a human moment that's yearning for a human response. And to his delight, he got a pretty satisfying answer from Gigi, and we learned a bit of a lesson there. Stepping back towards the larger picture a bit, the business model for this project is tied to two factors. One is operational cost, how much does it cost to actually run a service like this, and also the quality of the service in return. Because we went in with an eye towards measuring practically everything, we found out in a quantifiable way what is the throughput of things like staff per question answered, average conversation length, heat maps of busy times when people are asking a lot of stuff, how many people talk to Gigi, and so on and so forth. This is pretty important because what it allows for us to do is to really quantifiably figure out how to optimize Gigi operations in the future and figure out, maybe if we are going to introduce things like automations or bots, what are some of the areas in which we want to actually utilize bots for, and what are some of the areas in which we want to continue to use humans for. And where that lands here is that in order to retain the delight that's so crucial to who Gigi is as a character within a tech ecosystem, I can't necessarily take the next step by virtue of building a bot that replaced Gigi. But what I can do is to look at how to optimize the people who are behind Gigi using bots in a way that can do things like reduce the conversion times in the messaging and response time, for example, or finding ways for the FAQ or the knowledge base of what's going on around the conference space to, on the one hand, be easily accessible for the people who are Gigi, on the other hand, be something that can be grown over time by the conference staff and so on and so forth. So I think after just being here for the past day or so, I think what we're probably going to do is use Slack bots for it. So when we come back in October for Set Women, there will probably be a couple Slack bots that we're going to be building to help the Gigi operations out. So it'll be pretty interesting to see how that pans out. So now the takeaway is maybe applicable to you guys as you're thinking about designing bots is that you don't necessarily always have to start with coding like, complex AI or anything like that. We didn't. Sometimes starting with really simple solutions can reveal really interesting patterns and opportunities. And ultimately, if Gigi becomes a bot later on, that's really great. But as of now, I'm just taking small incremental steps and using human knowledge to really kind of hone in and learn what is the best approach to really convert Gigi into something that's automated and scalable, but also retain her character. That's it. Thank you. Hi. Yes. Oh, how do I consider enhancing humans' capability? How do I measure that? I would say that I would measure that by twofolds, right? I mean, we have a survey that we sent out towards the end of the conference, and we talk about whether or not Gigi was helpful in any way, shape, or form. It's quantifiable, and you can write in as well. So that's kind of like our metrics for measuring the quality of Gigi as a service. In order to enhance the human's ability, what we found out was that not everybody knew everything about everything that was going on at the conference. And so if there was a Slack bot that you could type and get information like, where's the after party at? You, as the person who's working as Gigi, could then find out that information and be able to kind of tailor that particular response much faster. So the time to response would be reduced, and that would be the quantifiable metrics, but also accuracy of some of the answers that goes back. So I would measure that. Now, ultimately, this is like kind of mid-step, right? You can envision like maybe at some point, once Gigi has an ability to obtain like personality and character and stuff like that, that human element could potentially go away. I think we're good. All right, thanks, guys.